7, week 14. I'm Greg Kutsona, and the topic is transhumanism, AI, and the end of the world. So I want to continue with the themes that we've been looking at this last week and just bring them to a little bit further along this week in this section on transhumanism, AI, and the Singularity. And I want to look a bit at the films, and particularly one film from the films that I recommended. This is Ex Machina from 2014. IMDb describes the film in this way. A young programmer is selected to participate in a groundbreaking experiment in synthetic intelligence by evaluating the human qualities of a highly advanced humanoid AI. So that's a quick sketch of what the film is about, and I think I might just give you a little bit more. That Ex Machina depicts the creation, as it says, of an AI, and this is the beautiful and extremely dangerous robot Ava. Ava has been created to pass the Turing test developed by the Cambridge and Princeton educated computer specialist Alan Turing in 1950, a test which evaluates a machine's ability to exhibit intelligent behavior equivalent to or indistinguishable from a human being's. And here I'm reading from my book, Mere Science and Christian Faith, which, as context, is a book on connecting science and technology with Christian theology and Christian belief. So the film is interesting, and there are names in it that allude to key characters from the Bible's description of God's creation, and therefore it evokes religious themes. So let's first look at that idea of alluding to or allusions. As you can see from the graphic, when a person says he's a real Romeo with the ladies, that person is probably alluding to Romeo and Juliet, the play, the movie, whatever. And specifically, an allusion is a figure of speech that makes a reference to people, places, events, or literary works directly or by implying them. It is up to the audience to make the connection. So I think these allusions from the Bible demonstrate that intuitively or consciously or maybe some other way, whenever we think of the end of time, especially the end of humanity, we tend to sense that we're touching on something religious or transcendent, and moving and understanding the transcendence or the transcendent is often a description of what religion is. But this is a particular religion of Judaism as developed through the Hebrew Bible or the Old Testament, and also as picked up by Christianity. So in the movie, Ava is an alternative form of the name Eve, who is the first woman described in the Bible in the Garden of Eden. And let's just look at that for a minute, how Eve is described. In Genesis chapter 2, starting at the 18th verse, it says, "Then the Lord God said this, 'It's not good that a man should be alone. I will make for him a helper as his partner.' So out of the ground the God formed every animal of the field and every bird of the air and brought them to the man to see what he would call them. And whatever the man called every living creature, that was its name." So the man gives all the names to the animals, but for the man, which is in Hebrew the word Adam, it's a generic name for human being, or Adam, but for Adam there was not found a helper as his partner. So the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man, and he slept. And then God took one of the ribs of the man and closed up its place with flesh. And then the rib that the Lord God had taken from the man, God made into a woman and brought her to the man. So this is the creation of Eve, the companion, the strong partner, would be the best translation of the Hebrew in this text here from the Bible, a strong partner for the man. And we'll see how that's played out in the movie in a bit. Caleb is the name of the computer programmer who is recruited for this experiment by Nathan of a computer search engine company. So let me see if I can just fill that out a little bit, because I think it's so important as we see all these biblical allusions. Nathan is a computer genius and owner of a web search company, and here we should think Google. Nathan creates Ava, a beautiful and alluring artificial intelligence robot. And at one point in the film, Nathan declares something significant to Caleb, one of his employees, an employee who has been recruited to assess Ava. And here's what Nathan says. The arrival of strong artificial intelligence has been inevitable for decades. The variable was not when. The variable was when, not if. So Caleb in the Hebrew Bible is the companion of Joshua as Joshua leads the people of Israel into the promised land in the Old Testament. And so it's a companion to this new start and a new land that we know as Israel or Palestine. And then secondly, Nathan the word is from the Hebrew root to give and can be rendered as he has given or he will give. So in this case, Nathan is giving this new thing and is also, by the way, a court prophet who lived in the time of King David, the king of Israel around 1000 before the Common Era. And so the prophets spoke forth often what was occurring or what was to come, both things. Almost they were like divine oracles. And Nathan seems to be taking up a divine oracle of what is to come through this creation of Ava. And as you can see, all these names are strong allusions to the culture of the West, to the Western culture, the European, American culture, and so on. And also, because of that, evoke these themes of we're playing God when we do this kind of work, if we're able to, when we create artificial intelligence. So I want to ask some questions that are raised by Ex Machina. First of all, if you've watched the movie, there are 6 sessions that Caleb has with Ava. Why 6? Why 6 sessions, particularly on 6 days? To me, it seems to evoke the 6 days of creation in the first chapter of Genesis. If you know that text, God creates various parts of the world on 6 days and then rests on the 7th. Second question, is Ava essentially mirroring human behavior in the Garden of Eden, especially in her selfishness? So Ava at one point demonstrates what seems to be consciousness, even a kind of empathy to Caleb. And then at the end of the movie becomes incredibly self-centered and self-focused, or at least reveals that she's always been concerned ultimately about her freedom, but that freedom is a breaking away from what we would say is her creator in the movie, Nathan, and in fact betraying Nathan and Caleb. So here's the question, there's always been this mystery of evil. Why is there evil in the world? And one of the answers for that question has been, it's because of freedom, the freedom to choose good or evil. And the film seems to answer the question of evil by saying that to create freedom, we are therefore creating the possibility of evil action and sin. And so even if we can create something like a human being, an AI robot will probably mirror our own evil actions. Third question, if we're able to create an AI that interacts with us more or less as Ava does, what does that mean for our understanding of creation and the soul and for what it means to be human? So in Genesis, the first chapter, verse 26, it says that God creates the man and the woman in the divine image, in the image of God. God creates them. And that traditionally has been connected with the soul, which is our ability to relate to God in a unique way, different from any other animal, according to the tradition of Western religion. And if Ava, or something like Ava, comes to be, does that mean we have created something or somebody with a soul? And the fourth question then is this: what does this film help us to understand about the promise and the problems of AI and technology? I think it helps us understand something about the psychology of human beings. And here I'm going to continue reading from the book and a reflection on even what the word ex machina means and how the film is asking these questions about the promise and particularly the perils of technology, as also does The Matrix and The Terminator. About halfway through the film Ex Machina, the movie pivots and begins to emphasize the dark side of technology. Ultimately, Ava turns out to be dangerous, self-serving, manipulative, and even murderous. She becomes human-like, not only in her glorious intelligence and apparent self-consciousness, but in her fallenness and evil as well. Ava is quite Eve-like. And Ava becomes a parable for our fears about technology, that we create something or someone that overwhelms us. Ex Machina is obviously a play on the Greek tragedy trope of Deus ex machina, or God from the machine. And that is where a machine was employed to deliver actors playing gods onto stage. This could either be a crane, which in Greek is a machine, and the crane lowered actors from above, or a riser that brought actors up through a trap door. Apparently, it was the Greek dramatist Aeschylus who invented the term Deus ex machina. Today we use it more broadly to denote an unrealistically resolved plot. But here, in the movie Ex Machina, the direction is reversed. The plot isn't resolved, but descends into anarchy. This is not a comedy in the technical sense of the word, where the initial values of the film's world are restored by the end, but a tragedy, again in the technical sense of the term, where suddenly an anonymous AI robot is released into the world and creates chaos. The god of the machine, Nathan, the creator of Ava, is destroyed. Why do we fear technology, its presence in our lives, and what skulks on the horizon? Maybe it's because we fear ourselves. In some ways, the central theme of these 2 weeks about technology, AI, transhumanism, the singularity, is human control. Human control. Technology gives us the opportunity to change our world radically and thus to control it. And this is powerful. Philosopher Nick Bostrom helps us to see how human beings, through our planning, could use our control, our technology, to push out the end of time, and how our visions of the end of time might be more end in the sense of purpose and directionality rather than the cessation. But do we have the wisdom not to use technology and human control destructively? Will we ultimately play God, as the saying goes? And the films raise this particular question and problem dramatically. And then thirdly, does this contradict the central teaching of many religions, which is to put trust in God? The definition of the word faith is really to trust in, to rely upon. It's not to believe things without evidence, as is commonly thought today, but ultimately in Western religions of Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, to trust, to have faith is to trust. And does our having control and the power of technology cause us not to trust in a greater power? Theologian Ted Peters demonstrates how perhaps the future of technology and God's future can be brought together and are antithetical to one another. And all these questions bring me to the big question as we encounter this material. What do you think? What do I think? What do we think about human control and the future and the end of time?